Hey, this video is brought to you today by my friends at LMNT. LMNT is a tasty electrolyte mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt and no sugar. LMNT was formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following keto, low carb, or paleo diets. LMNT contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium per packet. The perfect ratio I have found for me. What I love the most is that there's no junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. As a member of our community, LMNT has a very special offer for you. You can claim your free LMNT sample pack simply by going over to the website drinklmnt.com/MarcusPhilly to get yours. And if you're wondering what my favorite flavor is, raspberry salt mixed with some ice water is delicious. I hope you enjoy. Kids, wife, work, eat, train, recover, sleep. Never a dull moment in my life. My days are full from start to finish. I rarely have time that I'm not doing something. I think many of you can relate to having daily pressures that you cannot ignore, or else there are consequences. The life of a working parent or a working individual who also wants to attend to their fitness and their health, all while nurturing the relationships in their life, like those of their significant others, it's full on. There are so many reasons why it's easy to neglect yourself. My life is no different than that. I've had to work hard to develop an approach that allows me to pull off eating a high quality and consistent diet. My goal is plain and simple. I want to have the energy to keep up with my life. That means eating enough high quality food. I said goodbye to caloric restriction years ago, opted for eating more, moving more, and staying super engaged in my day-to-day life. But Marcus, I don't have a problem eating enough. I actually eat too much. I've heard it all before. Most people think that they don't have a hard time eating enough calories. And this is what leads them to wanting to know how to eat fewer calories. But what is the real story? Well, more often it's people attempting to restrict calories way too much. They do this for a portion of their week, maybe 3 or 4 days. Then it leads to them overeating for 2 to 3 days in large excess. Because they get so hungry and depleted by their over-restriction, they go overboard on the weekends, and the net result is overconsumption. So what's the secret to breaking this cycle? Eat more protein and eat enough calories each day so that you never feel that insatiable hunger level that's gonna derail your progress. All right, so how do you get plenty of protein and a sufficient number of calories each day? So much so that you can feel awesome, look your best too, and not fall into the nutrition traps that so many busy people fall into. Well, follow me today and you're gonna find out. So here we go. We're having meal number 1. It's breakfast. I love the quote, "My stomach doesn't know what time it is." That quote helped me release me from this belief that breakfast had to have breakfast foods. Today, I did choose some typical breakfast staples and some not so typical. But many days you'll find me eating veggies and steak for breakfast instead of your traditional oatmeal and eggs. To start my day off today, I had fried eggs in butter. I had about 2 ounces of cooked liver on the side and a little salsa as well. In the past 6 months, I started incorporating small amounts of organ meat into my diet as these parts of the animal are packed full of nutrients, and that is why I'm eating them on a daily basis. Next to all that, I had a small bowl of Greek yogurt with some homemade almond butter mix. That's right, I have my homemade almond butter mix that has a few of the supplements that I take each day: creatine, collagen, and gelatin. I mix them in and then I store it in the fridge, and it tastes great. It gives me some creatine, which is well-researched, safe, and effective, and it gets me some collagen and gelatin, which supply me amino acids that complement the other protein sources of my diet. It tastes so good, it's easy to make, and I just throw some right onto my Greek yogurt. The last thing I'm having for breakfast is a medium-sized banana and a glass of raw milk. Raw milk just means that it's not pasteurized. I get this from a local farm and it's delivered right to me fresh from the cow. I know this raw milk thing isn't always available everywhere, and it does present some health contamination risks if you're gonna go this route. But in my experience, it has been great for my gut health and digestion, and a really nice way to bring back milk into my diet. One of the biggest questions I get is, Marcus, do I have to eat liver or pickled stuff or all this weird stuff that you have on your plate? Or is this just a general approach to your eating style? There is definitely a general style to every one of my meals that I eat. I've been following the same approach for about 10 years. What foods comprise each meal, that has changed over time, but the approach, big picture, has stayed consistent. And that is what led to most of my success with body composition and performance gains. So no, you don't have to have liver. You don't have to have pickled foods. What you do need to do is you need to make protein the center of every meal like I do. Today, I had at least 60 grams of protein on the plate at each of my 3 meals. And yes, you can absolutely absorb more than 50 grams of protein in one sitting. Number 2, each of my meal has real food in it. See, I'm aiming to get most of my food minimally processed. And more often than not, the things that go on my plate are ingredients themselves and not foods that have lists of ingredients. Number 3, to the general food philosophy. I aim to sit down and take my time with at least 2 of my 3 meals every day. I want to minimize distractions, I want to slow down, and I want to make sure I have enough time to chew and fully digest my food without getting my brain all wired. Number 4, I'm always aiming to have at least 1 to 3 servings of fresh fruits and veggies with each meal. I'm not concerned really where they come from. I'm not trying to pick this one because it has more glycemic or less glycemic index. What I am trying to do is pick the ones that I like and pick the ones that I digest well. Fruits and veggies are a part of my diet that do often upset my stomach. And so what I want to be mindful of is the ones that don't do that make me feel good with no bloating, no gas, and no burping. Okay, after my breakfast with my kids, I drop them off at school, I head into the gym, I train, I do a work session, and then next thing you know, it's time for lunch. So meal number 2 of my day, lunchtime, consisted of the following. I made venison burgers. I took a 14-ounce package and I just sliced it in half. That gave me 2 7-ounce patties that I formed, put a little salt on, I cooked in a cast iron pan with beef tallow. Beef tallow is a great cooking oil. It has a ton of fat-soluble nutrients in it, and I use it all the time. I make sure to get mine from grass-fed sources like White Oak Pastures out of Georgia. Now, while I was at it, prepping my lunch burgers, I also made my dinner protein, which was 2 similar-sized bison burgers. I'll store those in a glass container and I'll have them later. For meal number 2, my carbohydrate at this meal was coming from a medium-sized purple sweet potato. That got tossed in the air fryer for 15 minutes at 400 degrees. Since I decided to prep all my food in one go for this day of eating, I knew that 15 minutes was my window to get my food prep done because that's how long the potatoes were in the air fryer. And guess what? This entire prep took 20 minutes to build 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a bowl of fruit for dessert. The last thing I added to this meal was a side of pickles, which I absolutely love. I love the salt, the vinegar taste of pickles, and they're a great food that add volume to your plate and to your meal without adding many calories at all. A lot of people ask me, hey, what do you take to work with you? How do you manage taking things to and from the gym and to your office? Well, on days that I work from home, which is 2 to 3 days a week these days, I like to make my meals as the day unfolds. But I'll usually do some batch prep of my proteins on any day of the week, just like I did today. I'll cook up lunch and dinner or breakfast, lunch, and dinner proteins all at the same time because it saves a bunch of time, and I find that later on the burgers taste just as good as if they're fresh off the pan. But if I am headed into the gym for a working day, I will always bring lunch and dinner with me. I'll prepare the entire meal and I'll put it in a glass container like you see here. I like to avoid plastics, and I find that these glass containers help keep meals more fresh for longer. I'll always throw in a little bit of extra fruit, maybe some cheese, or maybe some other meat snack to go with all of these meals that I'm bringing to the gym, just in case I get a little hungry in between meals. After lunch, I had some meetings, I did some more work, I took a few calls, and then I had my therapy appointment. After my therapy appointment, it was time for meal number 3, dinner. Now, most nights of the week, I try and have dinner with my family. Sit down with the kids, sit down with my wife, eat together. But tonight, we're picking up the kids, we're taking them to gymnastics, and it's gonna be a lot of go, go, go. We're not gonna get home for a reasonable dinner and a reasonable time together. So I brought my dinner with me for tonight, and that meal consisted of the 2 7-ounce bison patties that I cooked earlier for lunch, and I prepped earlier in the day that I brought with me. To go with the bison burgers, I also put a generous amount of homemade ketchup on top. I love ketchup, but I don't love the ingredients in most of the store-bought ones that are out there. So I have decided to make my own, and it's really easy. It's literally just tomato paste, Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of cayenne, and maple syrup for sweetness. I mix it all up in a jar and I let it sit out on the counter for a couple days to ferment. That makes it a little extra tangy, it's got a little bit of spice, it's got a little bit of sweetness, and then I can put the lid on, store it in the fridge for weeks at a time. Last but not least, for this meal, I also have 2 whole avocados that I cut up and I sliced into the container. See, I love guacamole as a condiment, but most days I don't even want to bother with mixing up the lime juice, the garlic, the cilantro, and instead I just scoop out slices and I toss them onto my meal. Another common question I get is, how do I do the shopping for our house? And what do I like to have on hand? What are just some general points about how I approach getting food in the pantry and in the fridge? I always make sure that we have bulk amounts of protein on hand at the house. That means my chest freezer in the basement is always full. And those things come from all over. I'll buy from local farms, I'll buy from Costco, I'll order from meat delivery companies like the Butcher Box or from farms like White Oak Pasture and Force of Nature Meats. And I'll buy in bulk so I cut down on shipping costs and environmental impact. Additionally, we need staples for the house. We need fruit, we need veggies, we need some other starches, and we need some things for the kids. So we will place an online order from Costco or a local grocery store about 1 time a week and have it delivered to the house. We order from Imperfect Produce. This is a company that is dedicated to finding local produce that would otherwise be discarded and not be able to be sold, either because it's in surplus or because there are imperfections in the produce. You can get organic, locally sourced produce, fruits and veggies, and some other things very, very reasonably priced, delivered to your door, and you can cut down on environmental waste. So that's our approach to keeping the fridge stocked, keeping the pantry stocked, and making sure that we always have good food on hand. It's a weekly schedule. You got to think about it in advance, but if you buy in bulk and you have things refrigerated and frozen, you will always be prepared with something easy to make. We have just gotten to gymnastics and I was feeling a little bit more hungry, which is right on time, and that's why I have my bowl of fruit with honey drizzled on top. I have 2 medium-sized mangoes that have been sliced up, and I have about 2 tablespoons of honey that I drizzled over it. This is gonna be my dessert. I generally aim to have my last meal of the day, that's either dinner or a bowl of fruit like this, at least 3 hours or more before my bedtime. Since I tend to go to bed around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, that means that I'm trying to have my dinner around 4:30 or 5 to make sure that I have enough of a window after I have my last bites before it's time for bed. The reason I do that is because it helps improve my sleep, the quality of it, as well as the duration. You're probably asking also, hey Marcus, why do you go to bed at 8:30? Well, the first answer to that is kids. Those of you who have kids understand. Once they're down, it's time to get some sleep. I wake up early so that I can crush the day, and I want to make sure I get my 8 hours, so 8:30 is the time I go to bed. Hey, from time to time, my meals look a little bit different. There's something on my plate that you're like, oh, what's that? Oh, I've never seen that combined together. But if you look at the individual components, to me, they always taste amazing. I don't sacrifice taste just for function. Now, I do prioritize eating foods that are going to make me look, feel, and perform the way I want to, because that's what's most important to me in life. Pleasure sensations like taste and experiences with food are also valuable, but they do not take priority over feeling good every single day of the week in my entire life. A tip to you is that if you start to eat more simply in order to fuel and function correctly, you will start to love simple foods, which is what I've come to appreciate it. When I want to go out and indulge and have a fancy dinner out, or even have somebody cook me a delicious and inexpensive meal, I still enjoy that too. I love it even more because I focus on simple staples most of the time. But I do get asked the question, well, do you ever have cravings? Do you ever eat cookies in the break room? I mean, how dedicated are you? The answer is yes, I get cravings from time to time. It always happens when I'm underfed for the day. That's it. Like I do a lot of extra training or I'm moving a lot during that day and I've gotten dehydrated and I'm low on calories. That's when I have cravings. And that's when you have cravings most of the time. Now, I don't take issue with going and refeeding and filling up when I'm having cravings. My big thing is just avoiding foods that make my gut feel terrible. Like if I go have a giant piece of cake, I'm gonna have a lot of digestive issues. It might taste great going down, but it's not gonna feel good for the next couple hours. So if I'm craving salty, I might reach for some cheese or salty, buttery popcorn. And if it's something sweet that I'm craving, then maybe I'll go for something like rice cakes with peanut butter and honey on top of it. But Most days I'm very purposeful with my meals, and I follow this outline that I've shown you today. This keeps me from feeling deprived and in need of a break. I love these foods that I eat. If you try to restrict your calories and are always reaching for low-fat, sugar-free, processed frankenfoods, then you are going to end up craving things eventually. Someone underfed will always seek out calories. Someone who is used to sweet, hyper-palatable foods will want to binge on crappy stuff. Now, this video is meant to take a look at how I structure my day of eating and give you some practical principles of what meals look like at this stage of my life. At different times of the year, I'll gravitate towards slightly different types of foods, but the composition of my meals is generally the same, with a focus on protein first, fresh and real foods that fill out the rest of my plate, and I limit the amount of processed foods that I eat. And for those of you that are interested, I am going to include the macros for each of these meals in the daily totals of my calories. So go ahead, pause the screen if you want to take a snapshot and use the information however you'd like. Always remember that what works best for me won't necessarily work for you. Extract the principles and apply them and construct your own approach. If you love having ice cream for dessert, then go for it. You can still prioritize protein and fresh food the rest of the day. If you want to take a deeper dive into my food philosophy and explore the nutritional resources that we've developed at Functional Bodybuilding, or maybe you even want to participate in the nutritional challenge that we have with our company, then follow the link in the description below. Online members of Functional Bodybuilding Persist program will have access to all of these resources, guides, tracking sheets, and sample menus, and it'll get you onto a path for better nutritional success. I hope you got some value from this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, drop a comment. These action steps that you take help spread the message, get this channel a lot more visibility, which helps us grow the ability to bring you free and informative content. Thanks for watching today, and I will see you next time.